flag. Wait, is that the Adhan? I think so, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, man.
Well,
Gotta pray.
yeah, we
Alright,
do gotta pray.
alright.
We gotta pray. Let's get that in.
Yes, sir.
ASAP.
Ha ha,
I don't know
Allahu
what it is,
Akbar.
but what? You know, I've been listening to this program, Sunnahfollowers, and I've been learning a lot, Aki. Man, a lot.
MashaAllah. Yeah, like what? What you been learning about?
Man, I've been learning about a lot. Salah, you know, hadith, the life of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man.
Wow, for real though.
And you know another thing? The shows just keep coming on back to back.
Alhamdulillah. I just gotta check them out.
For real though.
Yo.
Wow. My God, if you have any questions, check this out. Every Friday, you can call in Sister Layla live. Call her with any one of your questions in regards to this deen, and man, she will answer them. She will get you right. Anyway, inshallah, I'm about to tune into that. But you know something else? You know, if this is going to be a benefit to me, I got to get with that Sadaqah Jariyah. All right. Donate to Sunnahfollowers.net. We're here for you. Sadaqah Jariyah. Assalamu alaikum. Another Sunnahfollowers exclusive. Not One of Us. Written by Sheikh Muhammad S. Adli. Broken down and brought to you by host lailanasheeba. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, right here on Sunnahfollowers. I got a couple questions for y'all. The first one, who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but if you're one of those people that have been trying to get information and you come across this, or even this. All right, take a listen.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Sister Lailanasheeba, the Managing Director and Founder of Sunnahfollowers Online Islamic University. As you know, we have classes every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we cover everything from Aqidah, which is your belief system, to Seerah, which are the stories of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the story of the companions. Please join us every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are broadcasting and streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, DLive, Trovo, and Twitch. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Her name was Barra, but the Prophet renamed her shortly after. Coming from a family of fighters, strong and trained as a warrior, she was fierce and strong, and her love for her Lord never wavered. Her name was Maymunah Bint Harith al-Hilaliyah. Join host lailanasheeba for the hit series Heroines of Islam every Mondays and Wednesday 9 p.m. Eastern right here on Sunnahfollowers.
Oh, okay. And mashallah, we're here. Okay. Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series, The Heroines of Islam. And this has become one of our most popular series, along with the Caliphate of Abu Bakr. And there's no reason, there's a great reason as to why. Because we're going through some horrendous times now as a Muslim. And one of the things that we learn as a Muslim is whenever we are faced with hardships in life, we should always look to how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions handled themselves. Now, I've been teaching you all about the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today's lecture, this is the last wife that the Prophet married, the last woman that he married. And throughout this journey of me trying to share with the Muslims around the world that there are so many misconceptions regarding the Muslim woman. We're living in the days of fitan, where there are Muslim women demanding rights, demanding to be liberated. I don't know why, because they already have rights. They were already liberated centuries ago. But it's just that we're ignorant of our rights. We're ignorant of our role as females, and we're ignorant of this deen. There is no need for feminism in Islam, because we are women who Allah made equal to men spiritually. We have different responsibilities, different obligations, different duties, but we are the same spiritually as men are. And I'm hoping that throughout this journey of me going over the different wives of the prophet, you see that these were all strong women. I tell you guys, in the 6th, 7th, and 8th century, this is known as the medieval dark ages. Women around the world in general, you had to be strong to survive. If a woman gave birth to a daughter, if the daughter seemed weak, if the daughter seemed that she would be, the baby seemed it would be a feeble child, they would bury it alive. Sometimes they would wait till the child got a little older in age. I mean, sometimes in history you will see, sometimes they would wait till the child was 6 or 7. If the girl was 6 or 7, so they can get a grasp of her character. And if they felt that her character was too weak, they'd bury her alive at the age of 6 or 7. Okay, this was how it was, not just with the Arabs, but with the Vikings, with the Romans, the Persians, the Greeks. That was just the world in which the people lived in. Women were viewed for only 2 purposes: childbearing and sex. That's really it. A woman was nothing else. She was to be traded, sold, prostituted, or whatever. But if the girl came from a noble family, they kind of value their daughters, because a girl could be used to bring countries together. A girl child could be used to unite kingdoms, to unite tribes. So that's the purpose that a female child had if she was born into a noble family. And today's story is the story of Maymunah radiallahu anha. She was the last woman that the prophet married. She came from a family of women, of females, of sisters. She had 8 sisters, and they were from a noble, regal family. And they were used to unite tribes, to marry the son of chiefs of other tribes. So, knowing that these 8 girls were of value, and this is what they did back in the 6th, 7th, 8th century. If a girl was allowed to live as a child because the parents saw, or her tribe or her kingdom saw, that she could be of use, they trained them. They trained, like I told you before, they trained the female girls in the art of war, because these were warrior times. If another town, another village, a tribe challenged you, whoever was the winner took the spoils, including your women and children. So the women would go on the battlefield with the Vikings, the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Arabs. The women would go on the battlefields too, to fight alongside their men, because rather than taken as prostitutes or concubines or used to barter, they rather die. Okay. It's probably the same choice I would have made had I been living back then. I wouldn't want to be nobody's bed wench. So I would choose to go on that battlefield and die with my sword too. So this wife, Maymunah, she was a fierce warrior, trained from childhood. All of her sisters were, because they were regal. They were from royalty. So they were all skilled with the sword, skilled with the bow and arrow, skilled on how to fight with a pole, how to take a person down, how even to grovel. We talked about Salama. Salama was also related to this wife. They were all, by the way, Zainab, radiyallahu anha, Maymunah, radiyallahu anha, Salama, Habiba. They were all related. They were all cousins because they were all the daughters of the chiefs of the Quraysh and different branches of it. So these women were allowed to live because of the nobility that they bore in their veins, and they could be used to unite tribes and unite nations. So that's why all these women were trained, but nobody was trained better than Salama and Maymunah. Maymunah probably was even more trained than Salama. And so we're going to do her story today. And again, I want all of you listening to me from the West. The Arabs already know their history. The Arab women will tell you we've never been oppressed. The Arab women will tell you we've never been subservient. The Arab women will tell you we're not the kind of people that lick pus off men nor bow to them, because they know that's not their nature. The Arabs are a warrior race of people. They always have been. Okay? But what happens is a lot of Arabic men come to the West and they give you Western women these wicked ideas that don't exist in their countries. And that's why so many of you come to me and say how you go through culture shock when you go to Egypt, when you go to Saudi Arabia, when you go to the Emirates, you go to an Arabic country, how those women are. The women are rude. The women are fierce. The women run their men. That's how they've always been. Or then some of you Western Muslims will look at a person such as myself. I'm half Arabic. Okay? And you wonder, why is she so loud? Why is she so aggressive? I get it royally. I get it from my Arabic side, and I get it from my mother's side too, because I got a lot of Bantu blood in me. I got a lot of African blood in me too. In fact, I got every African country from North Africa to South runs through my veins, not to mention the Viking blood that's in me too. 30% of my blood is Viking. Okay? So it's just my nature. I don't come from weak people. I come from strong. If I were living back in those days, I'd have been on the battlefield fighting, because I would refuse to be a bed wench for anyone. Okay? So let's take a look at the life of this beautiful wife who was so fierce. Even Aisha didn't bother her. 2 wives, really 3. 3 women that Aisha stayed away from. Number 1 was Salama. Everybody feared her, including Umar. Even Umar feared her. Okay? They also stayed away from Habiba, because Habiba was also the same family, trained. And this one here, Maymunah, Maymunah wasn't so much as feared as she was respected. All the Arab tribes respected her family because her family were something. So even Aisha, radiallahu anha, Aisha had a lot of awe and a lot of respect for Maymunah. She had awe for Salama, but respect and awe for Maymunah because of who she was, who her sisters were, what they did. And I'm going to talk about what her sisters did. And when I tell you what her sister did, that will totally put to rest this misconception that Western converts and Western women have, that Arabic women are women that lower their head, cover their face, and retreat. That's not us. Not at all. Let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen. Okay. Uh-oh, wrong picture. That's the picture. Oh, here it is. Here. This is the PowerPoint. And by the way, guys, like I said, she's the last woman that the Prophet married, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, and as you can see when I did the video, I hope you guys saw the video. I tried to find a video of a girl sparring because, and that's why in the video, I use this picture of this, well, it's a silhouette here. But in the video, it shows a girl in the desert learning how to box, learning how to fight, because that's what Maymunah was trained from birth, just like Salama, to fight. Okay, she was from was a girl, because by her being of nobility, the noble women, the queens, the king, the princesses, they were trained to fight, even with the Persians, the women from the royal family, trained to defend themselves. So that's why I used that in the video. And I tried to find pictures of a mosque because Habiba was attached to Allah. She was attached to the religion. Her faith was unwavering to the point where even Aisha, radiallahu anha, had nothing but respect for her. So let's take a look at her story. And I want to start her story off with a quote from Aisha, radiallahu anha. When Maymunah died, remember we talked about how Aisha, radiallahu anha, was not only a scholar of Islam, but she was also a poet. When Maymunah died, Aisha wrote a poem. And in her poem, she said, Maymunah has left this world. She had more consciousness of Allah and fear of him than anyone else. She feared Allah. She obeyed his orders, and she watched over her relatives, and she was close to me. Subhanallah. As you all know, that's a big statement coming from Aisha, because Aisha was the drama queen of all his wives. Aisha was the troublemaker. Her and Hafsa, they were the two that kept all the mischief going in the Prophet's home. So for Aisha, radiallahu anha, to make a statement like that about a wife, that's powerful. That's powerful. And that's what she announced when Maymunah had died. Okay? That's how much respect even she had for her. So let's talk about her. We're going to begin Maymunah's story with the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. You guys know we've been talking about that Treaty of Hudaybiyah. This is the period in history whereas the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went into a peace agreement with the Quraysh. And according to this treaty, the believers would not enter Mecca that year, but they would be able to go the next year. Okay. Well, when that time came, and when the month of Dhul Qa'dah of the 7th year of the migration arrived, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told everyone who had joined in the Hudaybiyah campaign to prepare for Umrah. This would be the first time that many of the Muslims had seen Mecca since they left it. This would be the first time that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have seen Mecca since he migrated. So he set out with 2,000 companions to go to Medina to perform the Umrah. And during the journey, they stopped at a town called Abwa. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam requested permission from Allah to visit his mother's grave. Remember, the Prophet's mother, her family was originally from Medina. Okay? So Abwa was a town not far from it. And this had been the first time that the Prophet had visited her grave. So during the visit, he straightened out the grave with his hands and he began to weep. And the Muslims who saw him cry, they began to cry too. And later they asked him, they said, why did you cry like that? He said, I cried because I remember the mercy and the tenderness my mother showed me. And as you guys know, this is also when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed for his mother. This is the dalil that his mother is not a Muslim. His mother will be in hell. That's when Allah sent down the verses of the Quran telling the Prophet, that it is not befitting for him to pray for a person who died an unbeliever and who will be in hell. So for those of you who always ask that question, and I don't know why these other brothers who call themselves men of knowledge don't tell y'all the truth. The Prophet's mother and father are kafirs and they are in hell. They will be in hell, in hell, in hell forever. We have a lot of hadiths that speak of that. Also the Quran. There is no doubt. We have the one hadith where a man asked the Prophet, do you know where my father is? And he said, yes, your father's with my father in hell, where they will be forever because they worshiped idols. That hadith is Bukhari. So the Prophet Muhammad's mother and father were pagans. They did not worship Allah alone. Like I told you guys, the Arabs believed in Allah, but they didn't believe he was the only one worthy of worship. They worship idols along with him, and his parents included. So anyway, this is when the Prophet went to his mother's grave, and you guys know the verses where Allah sent down saying that you cannot ask a forgiveness for them. Anyone who dies upon a religion other than Islam, they will never be forgiven. Okay? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after that revelation came down, continued on with his 2,000 companions to Mecca. And in keeping with the Hudaybiyah treaty, the unbelievers left Mecca for 3 days to allow the Prophet and his followers to come and perform their Umrah. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his 2,000 companions entered, the Quraysh and the other Muslims, the other unbelievers there, they went up to the mountains and they stood on the mountains and watched to see what the Muslims would do. And being the first time that many of the immigrants had seen the Kaaba in years, their hearts, they became so happy that they began to utter the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik. They uttered it in unison together. Until this day, this is what we do when we perform Hajj and Umrah. Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with us, tells us that when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered Mecca, he was met by the small children of the tribe of Muttalib, which was his tribe. And he took one of them in front of him, and he put one on his camel behind him to show the hypocrites, that he loved children, that he was kind and he was good. So that's how happy the prophet was to enter into Mecca and see the Kaaba, because they hadn't seen it in years. So the children came out, and he put one on his camel, another one behind him, and they continued around the Kaaba saying, Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. And to show, because remember when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had moved to Medina, remember we talked about how when we did the story of Aisha, radiallahu anha, how many of the Muslims, the immigrants, were sick because of the different weather. Her father and Bilal were sick. And remember, Aisha worked as a nurse taking care of the sick. Well, the Quraysh, the hypocrites amongst them said, oh, well, we get to size up his army. He may have 2,000 followers, but they're going to be weak. They're not going to be strong because the weather in Medina destroyed them. Well, to prove the hypocrites to be lies, that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered the Muslims to walk around the Kaaba quickly and proudly. In other words, to jog. He said, may Allah have mercy on the person who shows themselves to the Quraysh as being strong and powerful instead of weak, like the hypocrites told them. So that's why we do the jogging. When we make our tawaf around the mosque, around the Kaaba and the side, they do a little jog because of the lies that the hypocrites said that the Muslims weren't strong because of the weather. So even though the Muslims had walked all the way from Mecca to Medina, they listened to what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said and did the first of the tawaf and the sa'i. And they ran in an impressive manner while the unbelievers watched them from the hills. And the unbelievers were impressed by the Muslims. They couldn't believe how strong they were and how lively they were and how energetic they were. In fact, some of the Quraysh said, who are the people that told us that they were weakened by fever? They look healthier than we are. And this sight of the Muslims began to influence many of the people of Mecca. In fact, their sight, particularly the sight of the Prophet Muhammad, caught the eye of one noble woman. This noble woman who came from one of the chiefs of the Quraysh. She was the daughter of one of the Quraysh. When she saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, her heart began to beat with affection for him, and she wanted him. You know that love at first sight, that a lot of us women go through. You can see a man and he can impress you so much. We all fall for it. Layla falls for it too. Some guys can put on such swag. That's what we call it. And one thing about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was a man who had swag. Remember, we talked about him and how his description was. The Prophet Muhammad was of medium height. I would say he was around 5'8", 5'9". He talked in a low voice that had hoarseness. You know how the Godfather talked? He talked like the Godfather, like he was hoarse. That was his voice. That's charisma. That's swag. And his voice was loud. And he was so handsome. He had the perfect beard. Okay, that came down, that didn't even have gray hair in it. He had the dark eyebrows. He had a long, keen nose, big forehead. He had piercing dark eyes with long eyelashes. He had dimples. He had a cleft in his chin. And he had a gap between his teeth. He was fine. So he caught the eye of one woman in particular. She went, whoa. And that woman was Maymunah. That was Bara. Her real name was Bara. And somebody said, it seems like everybody. Yes, Bara it still is. And it shouldn't be. But it's a popular name amongst the Arabic women even to this day. It means purified woman or something like that. And the prophet said we should never call ourselves by names that it's hard to live up to. But that still to this day is a very popular name amongst the Arabic women when they shouldn't really have that name. So her name was Bara, and she was the daughter of Harith. And she was one of 4 sisters who were known as the believing sisters. The second of her sister was the wife of Abbas. Y'all know who Abbas was. He was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle. So one of her sisters had married Abbas, and her name was Fadl. I'm going to do her story later for y'all. Fadl. In fact, her sister Fadl, she was the first woman, write this down. She was the first woman, write it down. Fadl was the first woman to convert to Islam after Khadijah. Her and Khadijah were best friends. Her and Khadijah were best friends. When Khadijah announced that she was Muslim, Fadl said, well, I declare la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah too. Okay? So Fadl, she was a great friend of Khadijah, radiallahu anha, and she ended up marrying Abbas. And she was older than Maymunah. In fact, let me tell you more about her. Being the oldest of 8 daughters, she was the most trained and the most skilled with the bow, with the arrow, with the sword, with the spear. Just so you guys know, she was the one who killed Abu Lahab. Let me put it up so y'all can see. I'm sorry. She was the one that killed that Abu Lahab. And you guys remember him. He was one of the wretched enemies of Islam. He was one of the ones that him and his wife, Allah sent a whole surah of the Quran down about Abu Lahab and how he will be of the hellfire and his wife carrying the fuel. Well, who took him out? It wasn't no brother. It was her. Let's talk about it. One day, when Abu Lahab was going to visit Abbas, who was his brother, he picked up Abu Rafi, who was a slave who had converted to Islam. He said, "You're a Muslim now, huh?" So he picked Abu Rafi up and threw him on the ground. And then he jumped on top of him and began to beat the poor slave. Fadl was walking by, and when she saw this, she picked up a stick and she said, "You want to beat on that slave because his master ain't around? Well, pick on someone your own size." She took that stick. Remember, we are women of the poles. We can wield a sword, wield a stick. She took that stick and began beating the heck out of Abu Lahab. She beat him in his head to the point that he died a week later. Subhanallah. Don't mess with no Arab women. Trained in warfare. How is it that those women can do what they do in Palestine now? Those are the true Arab women. They're not crybabies. They don't go around licking pus off anybody. They'll fight to the death if need be. You, me, keep it moving. Should you die? Should he die? Alhamdulillah, keep it moving. So Fado, she was Maymunah's oldest sister, and she was the one that beat Abu Lahab to the point where he died a week later. Hello. Does that sound like women that's oppressed? Does that sound like women that don't have that have to walk 10 feet behind you and lick your pus up as it falls? No. And the brothers that tell you that stuff, look who they married to. They ain't even married to Arab women. Maybe the Arab women saw the weakness in those men and refused them. So that's why they had to come to America and marry American women. Hello. All right. Something to think about. All right. Maymunah, she also had two other sisters. One of her other sisters was the wife of Jafar. Y'all know who Jafar was? He was what, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad. He was the son of Abu Talib. She also had, I'm gonna do her story for you too. Her name was Maymunah Bint Harith. Another woman who was one of the first to embrace Islam. And also she had another sister named Salma Bint Umays. I'm going to do her story too. Who was she? She was the wife of Hamza. Hamza, who died at the Battle of Uhud. So now you guys see why Aisha, radiallahu anha, didn't bother Maymunah. Maymunah was a woman of respect. She came from a family of respect, of women who were known to die if they need be in the way of Islam. Okay? So that's why you're not going to read about Aisha bothering her. Because like Aisha said, had nothing, all the Muslims had nothing but respect for her entire family of sisters, of women. Okay? So anyway, let's get back to the story. Her real name was Maymunah Bint Harith ibn Hathan el-Hilaliya. She was born in Mecca around 590. Her mother was Hind, the daughter of Hoth. Originally, her first marriage was to a man named Masud ibn Amir. She married him before the advent of Islam. And after Islam, they separated. And she married Abu Ruham ibn Abdul Uzza. But he had died. And it was after her husband, Abu Ruham, had died. And by the way, remember, she wasn't in Medina. Remember, there were some Muslims who did not migrate to Medina. Which, remember, there were when the Prophet and the Muslims migrated, there were some that stayed back in Mecca. Her husband and her stayed back. She didn't have to worry about coming here, coming there. They stayed back, okay? But he died. And he had just recently died. Right before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to make his first and only Hajj since migrating. And she stood on that mountaintop and saw him. And her heart went boom, boom, boom. She said, look at Muhammad. Oh my God. Love at first sight. Okay? Love at first sight. After seeing how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims behaved, she left and told her sister, Fadl, who was married to the Prophet's uncle Abbas. She said, I want to marry him. I love Muhammad. I'm in love with him and I want to marry him. I got to be his wife. I got to have him. What woman wouldn't? I got to have him. I just got to be with him. I love him. I want him. I got to be with him. So her sister went and told her husband, who was Abbas. She said, Maymunah, she wants to marry the Prophet Muhammad. She's in love with him. She saw him performing his umrah with the other Muslims, and she's in love. She done found love, and she wants to be with him. So Abbas was happy. Okay, then the Prophet was his nephew. So what happened? Well, Abbas did not hesitate. He left his house and immediately went to the Prophet and told him. He said, guess what, oh Muhammad? Bara, who was 36 years old, she was around the same age as Habiba and them. They were all grew up together. They were around the same age. He said, Bara, who is 36 years old, wants to marry you. He said, she's in love with you. He said, and I think you should take her offer. Look who she is. She's Maymunah. I mean, she's Bara from, look at her family. The Prophet accepted the offer, and he made Jafar, his cousin, who was also Bara's brother-in-law, to be her guardian. Okay, so now look at our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had just married Zainab a couple of months before, a little while before, and then he married Sophia not too long after that, and Habiba had just gotten back from Abyssinia, and now he was taking on his fourth wife, one behind the other. What a man, what a man. Hello. And again, every marriage that he had was for a reason. He married Sophia to unite her, that tribe with the Muslims. Habiba was responsible for bringing in the Meccans, like her father Abu Sufyan. And now Maymunah. This was real important, and marrying her was a great thing because let's talk about it. First of all, when Abbas went and told the Prophet that Bara was interested, the Prophet accepted. He appointed Jafar, his cousin, and who was Bara's brother-in-law, to be her guardian. And when Jafar came to her and told her that the Prophet wanted to marry her, she was happy. She was so happy that she said, I dedicate myself to no one but him. This is true love. A lot of uneducated Muslim men don't understand the seriousness of that. If a woman dedicates herself to you, you should be honored, Aqi. If a woman tells you, I belong to you and no one else but you, I'm yours and yours alone. Brother, those are some powerful words for a Muslim woman to tell you, because she's basically dedicating herself to you. She's basically making a promise to you that other women wouldn't know the seriousness of to make. Okay? Because of her dedicating herself to the Prophet, that's when Allah sent down this verse of the Quran. Allah sent down the word saying, O Prophet, we have made lawful to you your wives to whom you have given their dowries to them. We have also made lawful to you your right-hand possessions out of the prisoners of war. Who was that, guys? Who were the wives who he paid dowries for? That's Aisha. That's Hafsa. That's Sauda. Who were the ones whom he made as the right-hand possessions from prisoners of war? That's Safiya. And daughters of your uncles and aunts, and daughters of your and those who migrated from Mecca with you, and any believing woman who dedicates her soul to you, if you wish to wed her. If she dedicates her soul to you, then that means that it's only for you. Man, that's powerful. See, I'm a fantastical person. And you know, hadiths, Surat al-Rasul, Sirah of the companions, that's my thing. A woman to dedicate herself to only you, and you not know what that means. I'm telling you, men like this don't exist today. Men like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam don't exist. We think that, you know, these brothers understand the deen. We think that these brothers are all that and a bag of chips. They don't even know what it means if a woman dedicates herself to you. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate. And it's a slap in a woman's face. And this is what something Maymunah, for Maymunah to dedicate herself to him, it would have been a slap in her face if he had not married her. But he married her. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So the part about any woman who dedicates her soul to you, this was about her. Because what made her stand out over all the other wives of the Prophet? She dedicated her soul to him. Aisha didn't dedicate her soul to him. She didn't understand nothing like that. You know, this woman dedicated her soul to you. You know, there's an Arabic thing that we say, Ana agla min rui wadami. You know, I love you more than life itself. This is an Arabic saying that we women say, I love you more than life itself. You know, my soul is your, that's powerful. A woman tell you something like that, brothers. That's powerful. That means you got her. You got her. And you don't even realize it. Sad. All right. So anyway, there's also a hadith about this dedication. There's a hadith that says when the marriage proposal from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who had not been in Mecca for 7 years, reached Beira, she was riding on a camel. And when they sent her the message from him, she said, let this camel and she who is on it belong to nothing but the Prophet. That's how she dedicated it. Okay. She dedicated herself and her camel to him. Okay. So the time period determined for the Hudaybiyah treaty was coming to a close. And so after the Prophet had sent his proposal to Beira, he wanted to remain in Mecca until his marriage with her was completed, because he thought that this marriage would also be something that could soften the heart of the unbelievers. Because again, you know, her tribe, her family, you know, they were of great power and nobility in Mecca. But the Quraysh sent 2 people to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to tell him that the time that they had agreed to was up, They were not going to extend it, not for him to be married or anything else, that he had to leave. So to keep up his agreement, the prophet complied with the Meccans, and he gave the order for the Muslims to continue on to Medina. And his servant, Abu Rafi, y'all know who Abu Rafi was. He was the servant that belonged, that was beaten up by Abu Lahab, who Barah's sister, had beaten him up for beating him. Well, his servant, Abu Rafi, was appointed to be Barah's companion to remain in Mecca and later catch up with them for the wedding. So this was one thing that disappointed the prophet. He wanted to marry her right there in his city, in Mecca, hoping that this would bring everybody together, that the Meccans would put aside their hatred for him, their hatred for the religion, and rejoice that these noble tribes were coming together as one. But it didn't happen that way. So he left her in Mecca, and he continued on to Medina, and he left Abu Rafi with her to bring her later. Okay. Barah and Abu Rafi caught up with the Muslim caravan in the city of Sarif, which was near Tan. And when they caught up with the prophet there in that city, that's when he and Barah were married. Her dowry was 500 dirhams. That was her dowry. And the prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was married to her while he was still wearing his ihram. But they had their wedding night after he removed the ihram in Sarif. So he married her, when he was had his ihram on, but their wedding night, he removed it, and they had their wedding night in Sarif. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam carried out his last marriage in the 7th year of the migration in the month of Shawwal, as he was able to enter Mecca without fear and in safety for the first time in 7 years with Barah. And that's when he changed her name. He changed her name from Barah, which means good luck. That's what it means. It means good luck. He gave her the name Maymunah, which means good luck. And he changed her name from Barah, which means perfect woman. That's what it is. So Barah was and still is a very common Arab name. There are a lot of Arabs name their daughters, but they shouldn't, because perfection belongs to Allah. To refer to somebody as being the perfect woman, this is not good. And so that's why he changed her name to Maymunah. Maymunah means good luck. Instead of perfect woman, good fortune. Good fortune. Okay. Okay. Maymunah, when they arrived in Medina, she entered the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in peace. She had the joy of being blessed by Allah with being Muslim and the honor of being his wife, and she was happy. And nobody bothered her. Like I said, she didn't have to deal with any antics from Aisha or Hafsa, because her family were respected. They were known as the Blessed Four. Her and her sisters were known as the Blessed Four. Okay? And they were respected by all the Muslims. Okay? And she was happy because she got the man that she had fallen in love with. And there's a lot of wisdom behind their marriage. Like I said, every marriage was for a reason. One of the greatest reasons for marrying her was to seal the friendship with the tribe of Amir ibn Sasai. Because remember, this is the tribe that was strong and influential, but they kept a lot of drama going. Remember, the prophet had married Zainab bint Huzaymah. And when he married her, that was to bring that tribe together. But remember, she died. She died 2 months after the prophet had married her. So now by marrying Maymunah, this is the same tribe. Okay, this would bring, hopefully, Maymunah would unite this tribe together. Because Maymunah was Zainab bint Huzaymah's stepsister. Okay, and stepsister meaning that they were not related by blood at all, but their father, you know, had married, Maymunah's father had married her mother or something like that. Okay, so they were not half sisters, they were stepsisters. So the prophet hoped that by marrying Maymunah, that would bring this tribe together, because Zainab bint Huzaymah had died. Okay. Also, Maymunah had 8 sisters. All of them were married to leaders of several different tribes. The prophet wanted to achieve peace and understanding between the Meccans and the people from Medina. So he hoped too, by marrying her, that would unite all these tribes together, because her sisters were married to leaders of all those different tribes. So there was a big reason for marrying her. It would unite, basically unite the Meccans and the Medinans together. Okay. That's why he wanted to have that marriage in Mecca, but the Meccans wouldn't allow it. Okay. Now, Abdullah ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas was the nephew of Maymunah. Remember, her sister Fadl was married to Abbas. So Ibn Abbas was Maymunah's nephew. And we have the hadith where he tells us about how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would lead them in night prayers. Okay, the Prophet would ask his aunt Maymunah to wake him up, and they would pray. The Ibn Abbas was a young boy, and they would pray the night prayer together. Also, something else that's important, and many of you probably don't know, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got sick, and the sickness that led to his death, he was with Maymunah when that sickness first began. Aisha radiallahu anha tells us the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam first became sick in the house of Maymunah. And that's when he asked all the other wives permission to stay in my home for care. And they gave the permission. He placed one hand on Fadl, the son of Abbas, and the other on Ali, and they dragged him, helped him to my house. So he first got sick. The sickness that would lead to his death, he was with Maymunah. And also, we're going to now talk about Maymunah. She wasn't married to the Prophet long, because as you guys know, right after he made his Hajj, he died not too long after that. So just like Safiya, she didn't get much time with the Prophet. Just like Habiba and Safiya, she didn't get to live and get much time with him as a wife. Okay. But look at what a great man he was, because during this time, during her marriage to him before he died, he spent his marriage, their marriage. He was not only dealing with Zainab, but also calming down Safiya and defending Safiya against all the abuse that the Arabs were issuing her. He was also making Habiba his beloved, you know, and her child, spending time with them finally. And now Maymunah, and he dies. Okay, so he wasn't with those four that long. Okay, but after the prophet died, Maymunah, she always remembered the day that she met him and the blessings of Sarah, where she married him. So she told her nephew, Ibn Abbas, she said, if I die, she said, I want to be buried in the place where he and I were married. And that happened. When Maymunah died, she was buried there, and her nephew, Ibn Abbas, he led the funeral prayer. And by the way, guys, Ibn Abbas was the governor of Medina when Maymunah died. Okay. There's different reports about the date of the year of her death, but many people believe before the 58th year of the migration. We have a hadith from Atta. He says, I was with Ibn Abbas at the funeral of the prophet's wife, Maymunah, in Sarah. Ibn Abbas announced, he said, this woman was the wife of the prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do not shake or rattle her coffin. Carry her well. You know, that hadith that's in Sahih Muslim, you know, that's the dalil that Ibn Abbas, he was the governor of Medina at the time, and he was the one that did her funeral prayer, and she was his aunt. Just so you guys know, Maymunah reported over 76 hadiths about the prophet. 7 of those hadiths are in Bukhari and Muslim. 1 appears in Bukhari, 5 in Muslim. 60 of her hadiths are in Imam Ahmed's book. Okay, so she reported a lot of hadiths about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many relating to how he used to pray the night prayer, how he would pray at night, and how he would gather the family together to pray and all of that. Finally, I'm going to end the story of Maymunah with this one hadith that she's narrated. Maymunah used to take loans from people. The people would come to her and borrow money from her, in other words. One time, a person came to her and borrowed a large amount of money from her. And one of the people said, "Oh, mother of the believers, what assurance do you have that he will be able to pay you back the large amount that he borrowed from you?" And she said, "Don't you know that my husband, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said there is no person who has the intention to repay a debt who will not be helped to repay that debt by Allah." And that hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Okay, so that's one of the hadiths that she narrated. So Maymunah, radiallahu anha, she came from a family of warriors. All her sisters, all 8 of them, were trained in warfare because they were from nobility. And like I told you guys, you got to learn history. Back in the medieval period, if a female child came from a family of nobility and was worth keeping alive, they would train them in warfare so they could use them to barter and marry and unite kingdoms. All her sisters married men from different strong tribes of the Quraysh. And all her sisters knew how to defend themselves. Her oldest sister was the one that took out Abu Lahab. They all believed in Allah. They feared Allah. They were a family of women of respect. So much so that Aisha even respected them. All right, so I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Also remember about her, she was the one who Allah was speaking about Any woman who dedicates her soul to you is lawful for you to marry if you want. She dedicated herself to him. That's powerful. Men today don't know what that means and how great a thing that is. That's a woman that's willing to die for you. That's a woman that's willing to sacrifice the world for you, die for you. And everything she has, she's given it to you. That's what that means. All that I have, everything I have, my money, my property, my home, my being is yours. You brothers are so stupid. You get a woman that's willing to do that for you and y'all don't know what that is, what that means, and you ghost her and dog her, trade her in for somebody, some decrepit woman that don't know her head from her toes and don't know how to pray and don't know what love is. Y'all brothers are crazy, man. These are real women and those were real men. God, I wished I was living back then. Woo! Stories. I tell y'all, the stories of the companions. You want love? You want mystery? Suspense? Learn about them companions. All right. Any questions or comments?
I had just one comment. Her story is very interesting about Maymunah. And when you look at the depths of her love for the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's how she would just expose her soul, the want for this man, you know, this great man, and her admiration for him. It's just, you could just see the poetry and just write a story of them two and how she fell for him that hard in the beginning, looking at how she just claimed him. And that's just a short glimpse of the levels of the love that you can have for your mate and the person that you seek to share that very intimate side of you with. And it just shows a level of vulnerability, openness, love, admiration, and just willing to just give it all for this person that she had a history of knowing of who he was, what he stood for, and the depths of where she would go for him. And that to me is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful love story. And that's why I tell you sisters too, on the other hand, be careful who you dedicate yourself to. That's why when you sisters are looking for a husband, you young girls, be careful, because you are a queen and you are looking for a man worthy of you. The man has to be worthy of me dedicating myself to. If I'm going to give my heart to you, if I'm going to give my soul to you, my life to you, you got to be worthy of it. You can't be some man with broken promises. And that's what you young girls have to be careful of, because there's a lot of men out there who will promise you the world, but they don't keep a promise. They have broken promises. There's a lot of men out there who do have swag. The Prophet Muhammad had swag, but his swag was real. There's a lot of men out there that are good talkers and got all that charisma and all that swag, but they leave you hanging. They'll leave you hanging. They'll leave you confused. They'll leave you lost. So if you're gonna dedicate yourself to somebody, he got to be worthy of it. Okay? You got to ask Allah to give you the ability to see through him, to see if he's worthy of my dedication. Is he worthy of my heart? Can he champion you? That's the thing. A woman likes to be championed. All the prophets' wives, They wanted to be champion. Khadijah, radiallahu anha. All these wives helped make one Khadijah. All of these women had different components of Khadijah in them. But Khadijah was the real McCoy. He didn't need nobody with her because she was one of the most perfect women created. And what was Khadijah's thing? You have to be able to champion me. Will you champion me, brother? What did she tell Abu Lahab and Abu Jahal? They all wanted to marry Khadijah. You men ain't worthy of me. You can't champion me. Okay? Muhammad can champion me, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she settled for him. She helped him see his worth. She said, oh, Muhammad, you don't see your worth. I see in you that which you don't see within yourself. Okay? Khadijah, perfect woman. Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, perfect man. He championed. He's worthy. He was worthy of you devoting yourself to him. Here, you got my heart. You got my soul. You got my money. You got my house. Everything I have is yours. That's what Maymunah was told him. That's what that meant. Everything I am and everything I have is yours. Even though they were together a short time, he loved her. She loved him because she let him know everything that I am and ever will be is yours. That's what I'm giving to you. Subhanallah, all of me. What's that John Legend song? All of me. Oh, is a man worthy of all of you? A lot of these brothers will leave you sisters disappointed, let down, hurt, because they are nothing but broken promises. Don't let a man sell you a broken promise. Don't let a man lead you to nowhere but pain and sorrow. You're better off just saving yourself for the prophet, saving yourself for one of these companions. Because remember, I tell you, sisters, there will be no single women from this world in paradise. Every one of us, if we make it to paradise, there is a man waiting for us. It could be the prophet himself. Maybe you're too good for anything here. You're willing to give yourself, give all of you. And Allah knows ain't no man worthy of you because they're not worthy. So maybe Allah is saving you for the prophet himself, or Abu Bakr, or Umar, or Khalid bin Walid, or Abu Sufyan, or Muawiyah, or Ali, or Uthman. Because the men today are tainted. The real men up there. So that's why I tell you, sisters, stop crying. Stop feeling sorry for yourself because you ain't got a husband. Allah is the best of planners. Allah knows what we don't know. Maybe Allah sees the good in you. And he already got somebody that's deserving of you up there. Because the men here are filled with nothing but disappointment, heartbreak, heartache, lies, promises, and nothing else. Too busy to commit, too busy to love. Yeah, a lot of you sisters want love. Some of these men are too busy to love. They too busy loving other women, plus loving their job, loving their children. They don't have the love for you. But Allah got the love for you up there, sisters. Y'all need to start thinking like that. A lot of you sisters is having a hard time accepting your Qadr. You got to think, that's what I do. You got to turn it around like that. A lot of people ask Sister Layla, how can you be single for 30 years? I've been single for almost 30 years. I turn it around like that. I'm too powerful for these men. Can't no dude handle Layla. I'm just like Salama. Put me and Maymunah and Salama together. Give us a poll. We getting ready to go to town. We outspoken, man. We love Allah. We love the Prophet. We love the deen. Maybe can't no dude on this earth handle a woman like that. I don't believe in no pus licking. I don't lick the pus off nobody, not even myself, molest you. And I definitely ain't gonna prostrate to nobody but my Lord. So ain't no man here for me. My man is up there, Moses, alayhi salam. I got Moses. He got a long staff too. Moses waiting on me. Or one of them companions waiting on me. Or maybe the prophet is waiting on me. I'm too good for these brothers here. They too weak for me. That's how you women got to think. Y'all see how I turned it around? And that gives you the ability to accept your condition, to accept your Qadr and keep it moving. You can live a life of contentment, not happiness. Because even if you had a husband, you ain't going to be happy. Happiness is not here for us. The believer will never experience bliss until we are in paradise. But if you can accept your predicament, your Qadr, and turn it around, you can live in contentment in what Mukhtar talked about, peace of mind. There is nothing on earth better than peace of mind. I ain't got to deal with all that drama. I ain't got to deal with some dude giving me false promises, hurting me, telling me things that's not true, disappointing me, letting me down. I don't have to deal with that. If anybody gonna let me down, it's myself. Because all I answer to right now is myself. Better to let myself down than allow somebody else to do that to me. Better to disappoint myself than be disappointed in a choice I made for a man who I was willing to offer my soul to. Y'all see that? Do you sisters, older sisters, see how I turned that around?
Yes.
That's what we have to do as women. And that allows you to accept your Qadr. I'm single and I'm content. I'm single and content. I report to no one but Allah. No one will hurt me unless Allah allows it. No one will disappoint me unless Allah allows it. Because I don't report to no one but Allah. Y'all see that? I'm in control of my decisions. I'm in control of what I do. I am in control. I am in control and don't have to owe an explanation to anyone but Him, Allah. Y'all see how I'm turning it around? I can live with that. Rather than some brother second guessing me, some brother being suspicious of me, some brother being jealous of me, some brother. Y'all better think about it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, turn it around. One of the ways to defeat your personal jinn is when your personal jinn, especially if you're a person like me who overthinks. I'm an overthinker and I'm an over-imaginator. I can imagine all kind of stuff and make it seem real. So the Prophet said, if you're a person like that, turn it around. Overthink something good, turn it around. And that way you can find, whew, okay, thank you, Allah. I accept, I submit. Because all about submitting. Oh, Allah, I submit. I submit to what you have given me. I submit to this existence. I submit. I submit. Y'all see? Real simple. Women. We women, we're complicated because of our emotions, but we can overcome it. All right, guys, this was a good class. Next week, when I do this series, we'll be doing a series, the lecture, the story of Maria. Maria was not married to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Despite what a lot of Muslims tell you, she was not a wife. She was one of the Prophet's right-hand possessions. And she's the one that had the child by him. We're going to do her story next week, inshallah. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for joining and participating. Inshallah, make sure everybody's here tomorrow for my 6 o'clock class. Remember, I put the time of my class back to 6. So my class will be at 6, and then I'll have the 9 o'clock hadith class. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Please share. Please share this website, guys. Subscribe to us on YouTube and share us with those whom you know. Subscribe. And also, please donate. This is the first week, and we don't have that much. In fact, the people that did donate, alhamdulillah, the bills came out for a couple of the programs that we use. Okay, I still didn't get the bill for this thing yet, though. I got to check up with them. Maybe it's next week. Okay, so please support this dawah effort, guys, so we can keep streaming these classes and lectures to you live. All right. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Have a good night. Turn your life around, sisters.